Am I actually running it? Is that what's happening?
No, we just wanted
Okay.
to turn on. Are we on? We're on.
Oh yeah, we're on. We've
All
been on.
right. We got it. Okay, so general announcements. If you guys want to make a donation to Backdraft CMS, you can do that on the contribute page. We've got cool thank you gifts. If you're already a Backdrop contributor, you are eligible for an adorable dragon t-shirt, so send an email to info@backdropcms with your address and we can get one off. Let's see. If you are a Backdrop contributed module theme or layout author, we can give you a free PHP Storm license. So if you want to try PHP Storm and you're planning on doing something for Backdrop, but you need a little help to get over that learning curve, we can definitely help you with that too. Again, and send an email to info@backdropcms and we can get you your license and get you all set up. We are trying to figure out our weekly meetings. This week we tried to have Wes turn it on, but we had some technical difficulties around like which link we should be using because 2 weeks ago we tried to set up the link ahead of time and I thought it worked last week, but apparently it did not work because it completely failed this week. So we'll have to streamline that process a little bit. But in the future we want to make sure that other people are going to be able to run these meetings somehow. So we'll figure out how to document that and make it a little bit easier to manage going forward. Updates from Project Management Committee. We are currently working on adding new core committers. I think PMC members, if you're watching, there are a bunch of issues in the queue now with people we are keeping an eye on and maybe next steps for processes around getting people converted into official core maintainers. So go ahead and take a look at those issues and we'll open up a discussion and hopefully we'll be able to start adding names to that list here shortly. And then let's turn it over to Nate to talk about community growth.
Yeah, so it was a pretty quiet week as far as contrib modules go. We've been doing a bunch of work on core and pushing to get ready for the next release, which is less than a month away. But here's the status update on contrib modules nonetheless. We have 236 total modules, themes, and layouts available for Backdrop on GitHub. We have 159 projects with official releases on backdropcms.org. One new project has had an official, or has made their first official release since last week, and 223 releases total on backdropcms.org. 52 total contrib authors, that's the same number as last week. However, we've got a lot of open applications, most of which we're waiting for the developer to come back with their initial port of whatever module it is that they're interested in porting. Also exciting though this week, Philip White, one of the co-maintainers of the 5-Star project, sent us an email and has made an application in the Backdrop Contrib group, which is really exciting to see his interest in bringing over 5-Star and voting API to Backdrop. So that's really awesome. If you're interested in joining the Backdrop Contrib group, you can do so at github.com/backdrop-ops/contrib, and that's where we go through the process of reviewing modules and developers that are interested in contributing modules, themes, and layouts to Backdrop. There are 160 total user accounts on backdropcms.org. 9 new people have made user accounts since last meeting. Again, there's not a whole lot to do on... Oh, there is more to do on backdropcms.org, but we'll save that for the backdropcms.org update. So if you're interested, create an account on backdropcms.org/user. Get your low user ID number today. All right, that's it for community growth. I'll just roll right into infrastructure. First item on here, we talk about every week, usage statistics. We still have some issues with the number crunching script. I'm sure I'm sure it's trivial, but we haven't had any numbers crunched for the past 3 or 4 weeks now. But we can get them crunched at any time. I just need to manually run the script. There's some kind of issue with our weekly run process that is not crunching the numbers correctly. But it can run the numbers correctly. I just have to run them manually, and I haven't done so. So I'm going to take a look at that again and try to get that fully working. Once it's fully working, we are planning on turning on the public access to usage statistics. It's actually all, you can actually get the usage statistics already through something like Project Browser, for example. It pulls those numbers. So the numbers are all there. They're just not publicly shown yet until we can get this issue worked out with them not being calculated every week. Once we have that in place, or really at any time, we have a long-standing issue, issue 99, in the Backdrop cms.org issue queue, to start trying to collect more information rather than just what modules people have turned on, what features they're actually using within those modules. And that will allow us to make better decisions around what features people actually use within Backdrop when deciding, you know, what are the use cases that we really want to focus on. Let's see, Drush for Backdrop. Drush is pretty well stayed constant. It's working for the most part. Jeff, do you have any updates on Drush since the past couple of weeks?
Nothing new. Just put in feature requests if you want them.
Okay. Yeah, you can get Drush. It's an extension for Drush from the repository, which is github.com/backdrop-contrib/Drush, and it's a Drush extension. You use it with Drush 8. So just download Drush 8 as you would normally, throw the extension into your .drush directory, and then Drush will happily work with 777, 888, and Backdrop, which is pretty cool. The functionality of Drush is a little bit limited. There's only certain commands that work, but the basics are all there with things like Drush up and Drush DL and actually, I'm not sure Drush up, but Drush up DB, and a lot of other functionality that people depend upon. We are still working on getting Drush working with Pantheon. I think that we have all of the tools we need, but we're experimenting with actually getting that up and working so that when we send new updates to Pantheon, it will automatically run Drush updb, for example, and make it so you don't need to manually visit update.php, which would be nice. Let's see. Flagship website. Jen, why don't you take it from here?
Alrighty, now that I'm unmuted. We did launch the service provider listing this last week, or actually earlier this morning. We did kind of a soft launch last week, and I added a link into the menu this morning. And so where that page lives right now is at support/services. And I think long term we'll probably end up putting a bunch of other stuff under support, like if we want to put a forum, that's where a forum will live. We're working on a curated set of documentation, that's where the documentation will live. But since this is the first page, I just put the link in the navigation that says support goes directly to the service providers page. So anybody who has a company that wants to offer Backdrop services should go ahead and post one there. You can do that just by logging into the site. And I did seed the list a little bit by shooting out a couple of emails. Obviously, you guys heard about it last week when I asked for feedback. I shot out a couple of emails to people who I know have been specifically looking for Backdrop clients, where I was like, hey, you can put your name on the website. So we've got a handful of people up there already, which I think is good. And we're going to send a newsletter this week as well that will tell people, hopefully get that done today, and it'll go tomorrow around 10 a.m. It'll tell people about the new things that they can do on the website, like adding a company as a service provider, and we should get a bunch more. But until we have a whole lot of them, there aren't any filters on here yet, but there's some follow-up issues to add them for things like geographic region or time zone or a specific area of interest, and those are all kind of follow-up issues for contractors and services. So if you have a company, you can add it. If you are a person, a contractor, and you want to be hired for backdrop work, you can edit your user profile, and there's a checkbox there now that says, I'm available for hire, and that'll put you onto this page. And so as soon as we add, there's also a location section in there, so if you want to add your location, then people who search for people in their location will be able to find you. And when we add areas of interest, we'll get those on both people and service providers as well. So if you want to look for someone who has experience with working on higher education sites, that'll be an option there for people to choose. So over time, we can obviously add to this depending on what our users and companies end up needing. But I thought it was a pretty good start to just kind of show people, like, hey, you want backdrop? Call these people. And then I have a follow-up issue as well for hosting providers. I noticed that the hosting page on Drupal.org was a little bit different because there's some more information you want to know about hosting companies, like what kind of hosting they provide. So I figured we could kind of special case that category page and maybe put some kind of a colored block on the page somehow that specifically highlights them. But right now we only have 2 hosting providers on here, so that's lower priority. We can figure that out once we get more hosts and need to figure out how to manage them. So that's kind of exciting. Other stuff coming up for the primary website is the showcase that we're working on for sites built with Backdrop. We currently have kind of a vague idea for content type and fields, and I turned that task over to Goldmantics last week to do a little site building and to set that up. And then we're going to start figuring out what the showcase should actually look like. We'll get a design going and then continue working on that into the future. That way, all of those people that hire contractors to build them websites can post their new websites in the showcase, which will be great. And then we also want to do a single sign-on with GitHub. We don't have currently anyone working on that yet, but it could be a fun task for someone who wants to figure that out. And then we have a bunch of follow-ups that we want to do for the modules, themes, and layouts pages. Some technical things we need to finish on modules, implementing the theme layout design, which we have, and then theme layout design. The theme design for the themes page, which is a layout, but then we also need the layout page to get some revisiting too. So we need to kind of think about that, like how do we want that to work? Should we just use the theme design for the layout page, or should we do a new layout design? So that definitely could use some assistance as well. And then we've got more follow-up issues, just kind of design review type stuff for our blog news announcement section in our events listings. And just so you guys know, I did manage to squeak out a short, sweet blog post last week about our time in Mexico. And I would also encourage anyone else who goes to events, if you want to put a little write-up about how Backdrop was involved with the event after the event. I think that's a good use of that space too, just to kind of keep news filling up the news page. So let's see. Moving on to news. The Backdrop Drupal Mexico post is up. In 2 weeks, we're going to do, or I guess in 1 week now, we're going to do a Calabox post by Alec Reynolds, who's been working on Calabox from Calamuna. And then hopefully Nate will have time after that to do his benchmarking post. So we could just kind of put some starting point stuff in there, where Backdrop is today. And then if we did another one in like a year and we had a bunch of performance improvements, that could be really cool. So good for that. We also have a couple of other ideas on the blog schedule that aren't currently up. We don't have dates set for them yet, but if you have something you want to add, we're always looking for more. You can add a comment onto the issue in the queue, which is issue 158 in the backdropcms.org queue. So newsletters, as I said, we're going to get one out tomorrow. That'll be a what's new on backdropcms.org newsletter. And then we're going to need another one in a month, which will be May 20th, and I'm hoping that'll be the Backdrop 1.4 overview about what's new in the latest version of Backdrop. So I think we're kind of on schedule for that. But if anyone has a particular fondness towards marketing, we do have a tag in the queue for audience marketing, where we could use some help on all of these content type issues. Okay, so next up on the agenda is for a progress report on Backdrop CMS. And Nate, you did a bunch of work on this yesterday, so I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Yeah, okay, so lots of things have happened this week. So Backdrop 1.3.5 was released yesterday, which was a bug fix release that addressed 2 security issues. It was actually the first security release we've ever done that wasn't coordinated with the Drupal team because they were Backdrop-specific issues. So 1.3.5 is available now. Update your sites. Your sites will be happier for it. They're not terrible problems, but security problem is good to get fixed in any situation. Backdrop 1.3.6 we will release whenever needed. There's a couple of issues that didn't make it into the last bug fix release that got bumped to 1.3.6, and so just whenever we accrue enough items that seem like it's worthwhile, then we will make another minor release fixing any bugs that we've fixed. Let's see, 1.4.0 is the next minor release, which is scheduled for May 15th, just a couple of short weeks from now. And boy, have we got a lot of stuff to do before then. But yeah, it's a little unfortunate because we haven't really placed a whole bunch or merged a whole bunch of changes into the mainline branch yet, but we have a whole bunch of stuff that's all ready or extremely close, and so it's going to be one of those releases, it looks like, where in the last 2 weeks, like, we'll just merge all the things. Which I wish that we were a little bit more incremental and had stuff that was queued up earlier in the release cycle, but yeah, we're rushing to get all of these items completed. But they're actually in really pretty good shape, despite the fact that they're not merged in yet. The first item is redirect module. In redirect module, I actually had hoped that we would have merged it this past week, but I was giving it the final reviews, and I found a bunch of untested functionality, so I went through and I was adding more tests. So I pushed up those changes yesterday, and again, like, review-wise, if you want to try out the functionality, that would be great, but it's actually looking really solid. I think that it's ready to merge pretty much at any time now. As long as the new tests I added are all still running, I haven't had a chance to check since yesterday, but as long as they've all passed, then I think that we're ready to merge on redirect, which is very exciting. References module. We're planning on putting something similar to entity reference into core in the next release. I know Mike has been going crazy on references module this past week, but he wasn't able to join this week. Has a note in here saying, okay, doesn't anymore. So I don't know quite what's going on over there, other than there's been a whole lot of activity. He updated the Contrib project. He's currently pushing it up to his own repository, so it's at github.com/MikeMcCaffrey/reference is the name of the project. And there's a README with the status of how things are coming along there. It looks like it's actually working, but I haven't had a chance to try it out yet. So anyway, it's really exciting to see that come along. It's going to be a tight fit to make it happen before the next release, but I'm really hoping he'll keep hammering on that, and we can also start coordinating with him, filing issues and filing pull requests against his repository to try to push that towards completion. The new front-end theme. The new front-end theme is issue 1361. Wes has been taking the lead on that. Do you have any news to report, Wes?
Yeah, so Graham gave me some great feedback, some things that came up for him, and I realized that I thought I had updated all the layouts to use the Bootstrap-ish layout utility classes, I have not, so I'm doing that right now. I'm going to get that done. Also filled out the issue queue a little bit better and added some labels. Um, so if anyone else wants to join in, the one thing I'm least sure about how to do is color module integration. I have some ideas of how I want that to happen. I'm not even sure the color module will support. So that'll be fun. And yeah, so I also need to document the grid system so that people can create their own layouts or port a layout to using this system. It's a little bit different than Bootstrap 4, not in any huge way. And there's also a feature that Bootstrap 4 doesn't have that I've added that I think I'm going to go back to them and say, hey, what do you think of this once I have it fleshed out a little more. So yeah, trying to think there's anything else. Oh, last week we might have covered this already, but we're going to include the front end, this theme into the next version of Backdrop as a theme you can choose, but it won't be the default. So I want to have it at kind of like a beta stage, so everything's pretty firm and it's looking good. Right now it feels very alpha-ish. So yep, I'm gonna make a lot of progress this week. I have quite a bit of time, so yeah, be looking for updates. That's it.
Excellent. Thanks, Wes. Yes, you mentioned it a little bit in your update as well. We're doing some reworking on layouts as well. Currently, we have 4 layouts in core, a single column, 2 different 2-column ones, and 1 complicated 3-4-3 column something or other that is basically the legacy layout from Bartik. And we're looking at adding additional layouts to core, but this issue has been held up for quite a while. I suggested that we move it to 1.5. Looks like there's a little bit of discussion around that in the issue.
Yeah, so we talked about something like Radix is super comprehensive. It has 33 layouts. And putting something like that into core kind of untested with this new theme seems a little scary. Like we're likely to get it wrong. And it's pretty easy to add things to core. It's hard to fix things in core that are broken, and it's really, really hard to remove things if we decide that 33 is too many. So some of the discussion we had where, if we're going to be putting in this new theme but not enabled, maybe we should be putting in some new layouts too to use in conjunction with the new theme as kind of a test before we put in 33. Put in 2 more, right? Just super narrow the scope so that we can practice what it would be like to have CSS provided by the layout module, layouts that all use this grid system, and try and figure out how it's all going to fit together in a way that's a little more sensible, rather than putting in a theme without new layouts or layouts without really knowing what we're doing, too many of them. And there might be a way that we can do that in a way that, doesn't involve as much, it's much smaller footprint in terms of the amount of change we're making, so that if we don't get it right, we don't have to update 33 layouts in the next version. And we wouldn't have to, hopefully, run away screaming if we get it completely wrong. So we'll see. It still seems like that might not happen, but people want it to happen. It just doesn't seem to be moving very quickly. Hard problems.
Yeah, so you can join the discussion about that one if you're watching and haven't participated. It's issue 698 in the Backdrop issue queue. Next item here, rich text editor. This is really an ongoing task more than a feature. We're just looking at expanding the functionality of the CK editor that's in core, as well as fixing some long-standing bugs. Again, the bugs can be fixed at any time. They don't need to wait until 1.4, and they don't need to be held up after 1.4 either. We can fix the bugs that we've got at any time. One thing that we absolutely need to do, though, is we need to upgrade CK Editor before the release to the latest version. There's been a couple minor releases of CK Editor since then. Some of the new functionality empowers some really cool stuff, like like you can drag and drop an image into the editor and respond to that, which would be really cool. I'd love it to be able to copy and paste images into the editor and have that actually upload a file. Right now, it actually does some weird stuff if you copy and paste an image. At least in Firefox, it just pastes in the base 64 encoded version of the image into the body, which while it works, is not at all what I think anybody really wants. So anyway, it would be great to get some of those things fixed and improved. Issue 1087 is a meta issue for CK Editor that includes a whole bunch of sub-issues, most of which are available for the taking, and it would be great to get some of those moved forward. If anybody's looking for something to contribute, there hasn't been a whole lot of focus in that area, so it would be great to get some attention on those issues. Let's see, there's also a couple of other issues, or several other issues that are in the issue tracker for 1.4.0. You can check them by clicking on the 1.4.0 milestone on GitHub and see what other items we've got slated for the 1.4.0 release, hopefully, or what issues there have been some progress on. I should add, there's a couple of things that I'm really excited about. There's a bunch of layout-related fixes and improvements and UX things that Doc Wilmot has done that are almost certainly going to make it for the next release, and it's really exciting to see those as well. But those are all in the 1.4.0 milestone. Let's see, other things that we hadn't slated, we should just take out Field UI for now. I don't think there's any way that we're going to put focus on it now, but we've got some interesting designs for Field UI in issue 779. We'd hope that we'd be able to make some improvements, but I don't think that'll make it in 1.4.0. There's also Project Browser, which wasn't slated, but is almost certainly going to get in, and that's issue 1399. It is really, really good. I gave it another review recently, and I know Doc Wilmot did another re-roll of it recently. That is ready for testing, and after I get done with Redirect, which is where my focus is right now, I'm going to switch over to Project Browser and try to get that merged in for release. So Redirects is going to happen definitely in the next week at this point. Project Browser should be maybe this week, but maybe next week. But that's really close, and that'll be great to get in. Yeah, sprints. Every Thursday, that's today, we have Backdrop Day, and before and after this meeting, we hang out in a Gitter and in the GitHub issue queue and work to resolve as many issues as possible or make as much progress as possible. You can find us in the Backdrop issue queue, github.com/backdrop/backdrop-issues, or also on Gitter, gitter.im/backdrop/backdrop-issues. We are in IRC, but that's kind of not really favored by most people at this point. So if you want to get in touch with us, Gitter is the better way to go. Reddit, there's also a channel that we have on Reddit for just discussing general backdrop-related news, blog posts around the web, and things like that. Reddit.com/r/backdrop. Upcoming events. Let's see. We've got a couple of items that are coming up recently or in the near future that are pretty exciting. Jen and I will be at Civicon June 2nd and 3rd. It's not listed on here, but mid-May, May 15th, isn't it? At DrupalCon New Orleans. We'll be there under the radar, which is why it might not be listed on this events page, but we are going to be there. If you're interested in meeting up and chatting about Backdrop, Jen and I are definitely going to be there. Anybody else going to be there? Wait, raise your hand if Jeff. Okay, awesome. All right, cool. So we'll have, at least a small contingency of Backdrop people at DrupalCon, talking about Backdrop and talking about Drupal, of course. Let's see, you can find more events at backdropcms.org/events. Books, this is really exciting. Beginning Backdrop CMS, the first comprehensive guide to Backdrop, has a publish date now. It will be out June 22nd. It has gone to the presses and will be out within the next couple of months. And that is really exciting to see that done. Todd Tomlinson, thanks so much again for working so hard to create that guide. He's also the author of the Drupal 7 Pro Drupal development. So under the same publisher, with probably a lot of the same material, honestly. But it's really exciting because Pro Drupal development is an excellent book. Todd also wrote the very first Backdrop book, Migrating from Drupal to Backdrop, which is also really good, highly technically accurate. And so we're really excited to see that first book come to the Backdrop world, and I've got a high degree of confidence it's going to be a good one. So very exciting. That's it for the agenda. Lots of technical difficulties getting this meeting going, but now we're here. Anybody? Yeah. Anybody have any questions or anything that they would like to bring up as an area of focus?
I have a question about Calabox. You have to have a key code. Can we get those as members of Backdrop, or do we just have to wait like everyone else?
I am not familiar with that, but I am guessing that we can get anything you need.
Yeah, let's email them and find out. We might even get a special Backdrop key code we can put in the blog post next week for anyone. But yeah, I'll try and get you one sooner than that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know Calabox. Calabox has full support for Backdrop, and we've also actually been doing some related work around it because Calabox is all Docker-based, which means that we need a Docker image for deploying Backdrop, which is kind of cool. So Mike from the Calabox team has been working with us to make an official Backdrop Docker image that will live on Docker Hub. So that's also just kind of a cool side effect that you'll be able to not only use Calabox with Backdrop, but as a side effect, you'll also be able to use any other Docker-based platform to just download and get Backdrop up and running. I mean, it's really just a YAML file that is, here's what I need, like my PHP and MySQL and stuff like that. But it's still really cool, just that that we have that capability. Cool. Anybody else? Okay. Well, we've got a lot of work to do. There's going to be a bunch of more activity this week in the Backdrop issue queue. It's a really exciting time in the world of Backdrop, and we will see you guys all online. So thanks for joining. Thanks for watching. Bye, guys.
Hi, everyone.